Local presentation of Read About It is made possible in part by a grant from Cox Communications of Oklahoma City, proud sponsor of this effort to promote reading, education, and literacy in our community.
A notable Oklahoman will be the topic on Read About It tonight. Hi, I'm B.J. Williams. With me is Bob Burke to tell us about his latest book, Law and Laughter, The Life of Lee West. We also have Phil Talbert, Shelley Ziegler-Hill, Ursula Ward, Doug Benton, Gary Rodriguez, and Dr. Mike Anderson. Coming up, Bob Burke.
The following public service program is brought to you by the Metropolitan Library System. And now, Read About It, with your host, B.J. Williams.
Bob Burke is a well-known attorney here in Oklahoma City. He's been a nationally known sportscaster, Secretary of Commerce, and a variety of other things before he decided to practice law while he was writing books. In fact, Bob, I think you've written almost more books about Oklahomans than anybody else.
That's what they tell me. This is number 43.
43. Okay. Well, you've got the title.
Okay.
You're it.
I think Odie Falk was about at 41, and I just surpassed him.
Well, great. You need a special award. But your latest book, or the one that you're here to talk about this month,
yes.
You wrote it with David Russell.
Yes, David Russell is a federal judge here in Oklahoma City, and we wrote about one of his fellow judges, a senior United States District Judge, Lee West, who I think probably has more friends than any other person I know in the world. A legend, Lee West.
And the title is Law and Laughter because apparently Judge West is a fair hand with a joke.
Anybody who knows Lee West knows that he's the most jovial person you'll ever meet. His law in life is that it's not just okay to have fun in life, it's a must, it's a requirement. If anything can be learned from being around Lee West is how to enjoy life, how to have fun in life. Great practical jokester of the highest degree. A great federal judge, and he has this really incredible combination of being an intellectual federal judge and then the most down-home, funniest guy you've ever been around. Great quality.
Well, you mentioned here in the book quite often that it's almost a little bit odd to hear him discussing not just Tolstoy, but all of the great Russian writers in that wonderful Little Dixie accent.
Well, he does, as we call it, the Reba McEntire diphthong, because Lee, still from his roots, he grew up very, very poor in Antlers down in Pushmataha County. In fact, he says that they were so poor that they were too poor to paint, but too proud to whitewash.
Oh, dear.
But very, very poor, humble beginnings, hitchhiked his way to the OU and then the OU Law School, and has an incredible career, not only as a state district judge in Ada, then a federal judge for many years. President Nixon had appointed him to the Civil Aeronautics Board in Washington. And he's one of those rare people, BJ, who can kind of cross party lines. Now, Lee West is a yellow dog Democrat from Little Dixie. Yet some of his great friends, my co-author, David Russell, the federal judge, is a conservative Republican. Yet those are two of the closest friends that anybody has in this town. And you'll notice the foreword to the book is written by Henry Bellman. Right. People might say, now, what would Yellow Dog Democrat Lee West and conservative Republican Henry Bellman have in common? Well, they're great friends. They have mutual respect for each other. And Henry Bellman admits that he actually appointed Lee West to the bench at State District Court in Ada many, many years ago, back in the 60s. Because he said that he canvassed all of Pontotoc County, could not find a Republican, and so that Lee was the least onerous Democrat that he could appoint at the time. Right. But this fellow has a lot of friends. And there's another side to Lee West. Not just has he been a great public servant for 40 years with 10,000 friends, but he has trained more world champion bird dogs than anyone in American history. So there's just a multifaceted fellow.
Well, usually you write about somebody who's dead and can't talk back.
Sure.
But how was your approach different when you were dealing with someone who was here?
First of all, it's much easier to write about someone like Ralph Ellison, who is gone, because they can't comment upon your writings. But I think it is more fulfilling to write about someone who is alive. It's more difficult because when you let that person read the manuscript, as I always do, they will say, oh, gee, that reminds me of that story about so-and-so. So the book becomes longer and longer and longer. Sometimes you just have to say, that's it, we can't add any more stories. It makes it more difficult there, but it's more fulfilling because in the end, you really feel like that you have captured that person. Because it's a great feeling as an author of when a Lee West will say, looking at the manuscript and say, I believe you've captured me. Or the wife has read that and said, you've captured Lee. Or a daughter has says, you've captured my father. And that's what I want to do, is I want to really capture the person. I don't want just facts, but I want human interest stories. I want to tell a well-rounded story and really capture the life and the contributions of that person.
Well, it seems to me the other aspect of writing about somebody who's still living is probably not too many people have written about that person, so there's not a whole lot of concrete research. It seems to me there would be an awful lot of interviewing and trying to catch
there is,
people.
and we interviewed many people who have been involved in his life. If you'll notice on the back of the book, there are quotes from President Jimmy Carter, who appointed him chairman of the Civil Aeronautics Board, and former U.S. Attorney Griffin Bell, other people who have played a major role in his life.
Mm-hmm. So you and Judge Russell spent a lot of time saying, sit down and tell me about Judge West.
And everybody was excited about doing so because everybody loves him so much.
Yeah. So world champion Burke, when does he find the time?
Oh, I tell you, sometimes they don't have court because he's out hunting.
Oh, I see. Well, I can remember my grandfather liked bird dogs and was well known as a trainer, but I don't think he had anywhere near the record that
Well, this is such an
West
unusual
did.
book because Law and Laughter, because he is an intellectual judge, and then a lot of laughter. But then the end pages on the inside of the book is actually one of his world champion bird dogs. So people open that up who don't know him and say, wait a minute, I thought this is about a judge.
Right.
I mean, he's in his robe on the cover there, and then the end pages, there's one of his world champion dogs. But dogs are very much part of his life.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed particularly the first part of the book, talking about, as you said, very
Humble roots.
Humble roots.
Yeah.
Too proud, too poor to paint and too proud to whitewash. But it seemed like he and his family were always determined that he was going to succeed.
Especially his mother. And Judge West was quick to point this out. He had a saint of a mother, a scoundrel of a father. But his mother kept the family together. His father was killed in the Antlers tornado in 1947 when Lee is in freshman year of college. But his mother really was a saint, kept her small family together, always provided for them, worked as a housekeeper, whatever she could do, take in laundry. She kept them going. And he had some of those formative teachers. At formative points along the way, he had some incredible teachers who took him under their wing and said, you can do better. You can move out of Antlers, Oklahoma someday. You can do better than your father did. And he took that to heart and made for himself a great record of public service.
Well, and I think his capacity to make friends helped him as well.
Oh, sure it did. The book opens with this great story about his wife wanting to go to the White House for a reception. He says, only if I can take my pickup that has my dog boxes in the back. So can you imagine the consternation of the Secret Service when his old Dodge pickup with Oklahoma license plates pulls up to the White House, and the Secret Service people are looking over to see if there's anything in the dog boxes in the back. Hey, she got to go to the White House, and he's dressed to the nines,
right.
but drives his pickup to the White House. That's Lee West.
Well, and probably the only person who arrived there that had to go park his own car and then walk back.
That's right.
walk back to the White House.
He took 2 spaces there. Nobody wanted to park behind him.
Probably at the far end of the lot.
Right. That's right.
Very good. Well, I think this is a book that anybody who wants to know a little bit about Oklahomans or Oklahoma, because there's a fair amount of Oklahoma history.
In any of
here,
my
too.
books about biographies of Oklahomans, I try to include lots of Oklahoma history. Baxter Black, the cowboy poet, wrote me last week and said, and he's a friend of Lee, but he said it's the best book he's read in 10 years.
Great. Well, I think it's a good book too, Bob.
Okay.
We're out of time, but I want to thank you very much for being with us.
Hey, my pleasure to be with you as usual.
Thanks. Bob Burke has been here once again telling us about Law and Laughter, The Life of Lee West. You can find this book at your library and your favorite bookstore. Coming up next is Phil Talbert. I got a chance to talk with him about a holiday celebration. Okay, Phil, you've got a video for us, and it's of the season, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's all about the holiday called Kwanzaa. The celebration of Kwanzaa is the title of it. Dorian Harwood is one of the actors that's involved in the video, and he talks a lot about the holiday Kwanzaa and all of the things that are needed to celebrate Kwanzaa and the process of going through each day of that holiday season.
So if you've never done Kwanzaa before,
Right.
this would be a place to start because is it pretty thorough?
I think it is. It gives you a good overview, first of all, of what the holiday season is about. It basically starts on the day right after Christmas, the 26th of December, and goes through the end of the month and also partially the beginning of January. So you can start by, it talks about how you set up for the holiday, all the items that you need, your little canara with the candles on it, and the 3 red and the 3 green, the 1 black candle. It's 7 candles rather than the 8 for the menorah for the Hanukkah season, but it has all kinds of good qualities, good principles in there. It talks about the things that you do to set up for the holiday. You set up a table with corn, and you have fruit on there also to represent the first fruits and harvest and things of that nature. It's very thorough in those kinds of things. And then it talks about each day of Kwanzaa celebration and all the things that those days represent, from unity to community spirit to celebrating all of the ancestors that have come before us and all of their contributions. And then it goes into how you celebrate and pour libations out of a unity cup and that sort of thing. It makes it a very, very good time of year for celebrating.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's a 7-day. You talked about the 7 candles. So each day you light a candle and you give thanks for one aspect of...
Correct. Yes, that whatever that day would represent, you would talk about that particular day and emphasize the people that may have come before us who made contributions to represent that concept.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Now, this is not the only thing we have about Kwanzaa in the system, is it?
No, we have lots of books on the topic of Kwanzaa for all ages. There are books on crafts that you can do, making everything from necklaces to placemats, little gifts that you can give to people. It's very, the library collection is very good with materials, also videos on the topic. There are also things with African dance and music in them. We have CDs that you can use to help set the atmosphere. It's we have a good collection of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you want to plunge into it this season, you need to head right to the library first.
I think you could get a lot to work with there. Sure do.
And I want to remind everybody that you can just look in the catalog, and if it's not at your library, they'll be happy to send it to you.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you very much, Phil, and the title of your video again is?
The Celebration of Kwanzaa.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yo, see that girl? She sets the curve in my math class. Always has her homework right. Me? I hate homework, but I gotta do it, you know? But I found out her secret. She logs on to the Metro Library website and then clicks on their homework center. I couldn't believe what they have there. Help for math, science, English, and lots of other stuff too, like encyclopedias, newspapers, magazines, even science experiments. Metro Library's Homework Center website is one-stop shopping. You can even find the phone number of the nearest library so you can renew your library books. Check it out. It's like having the resources of an entire bookstore right in your computer. And since it's from Metro Library, you know the information will be dependable and up to the minute. But hey, I gotta go and log on and get to work. From now on, I'm setting the curve.
With me now is Ursula Ward from the Cataloging Department of the Metropolitan Library System. And Ursula, you brought along some journals that I think most people might not even realize the library has.
Yes, they are new to our library. They're not new to the government. They've been around for a while, but we have just selected them for our collection this year.
And all of these that you brought today are about public health?
Yes, one of them is about public health. It's called Public Health Report, and it's deals to articles to interest of people working in public health service.
So if you work for county health or something, now the Metropolitan Library System would be a source for information.
Yes,
you could go
yes.
and look up. What really is public health? Do these magazines talk about that much?
Yes, really, to be honest, I looked at some of the articles, and I was afraid they would be too technical. But I was interested in some of them because they talk about developmental people with developmental disease. They talk about people who have prenatal care, all sorts of things that are interesting to a lot of people.
So really, I was thinking when you said that high school students maybe doing a report on
college students
or college students or so on would be able to look these up. Or these days, given our concerns about bioterrorism and that sort of thing, then I would think that the general procedures on public health, or I noticed one of them is really on the environment.
Yes, environmental health perspective is the journal for the National Environmental Health Service. And it's more professional, it's more clinical. It gives reports about the conferences and news about what is happening around the world. It's more for, I would say, more for college.
Okay. Well, Ursula, we're time is up, and I want to thank you very much for being with us.
You're welcome.
Coming up next, we have Kids Corner. Kelly Rhea will be talking with Shelley Ziegler-Hill about a book for our young people.
We have a great young adult book today. It's called Dreamland. It's by Dessen. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And Shelley, you brought it. Tell me about it.
It is a young adult book, so it is kind of a deeper theme than a juvenile fiction book. It's called Dreamland, but that's kind of a satire of sorts of Dreamland. It's about a young girl. I think she's about 13 or 14, and it's about how a person can get into a situation that they don't anticipate. Caitlin is the main character, and she starts dating this boy who's just fabulous. And in high school you think, oh, he's just everything, it's wonderful. And he starts abusing her physically.
Oh, no.
Yes. And it's so interesting because a lot of us, we can understand how women or men can stay in a situation like that. But when you see how it unfolds, you can kind of understand her position. She has a lot of family trouble. Her sister has ran off and left the family, and her parents aren't communicating very well. And
so she's looking for someone that she can lean on
exactly.
and have a grown-up relationship
exactly.
at that age. And maybe this person isn't all that healthy for her.
And she doesn't realize this because this is the only person she feels that she can depend on. And I think this is a very therapeutic book because I think a lot of teens can find themselves in this situation and not know where to turn or think they're the only one. And so this book would be wonderful to read to see how you got yourself in that situation and how you should get yourself out of unhealthy.
How this character dealt with it to move out of that.
Exactly. Exactly. Wow. And she does get out of the situation.
I'm so glad to hear that.
But it does take a long time, and I think it's good for girls in high school to read because it just the whole setting is in a high school setting and her friends, and she starts alienating herself from her friends, and she starts using drugs and because of the boyfriend, and
she has a lot of issues going on that kids are dealing with right now.
Exactly, and I think a lot of teens think they're the only one, and they think, what? How do I get out of this? So this is I thought was wonderful. It is a dark theme. It is.
But if you have thoughtful teens who are involved in a lot of different activities that, may be seeing some of this in their peer group, this would be a good book for them to read.
Oh, exactly. I think because in Caitlin's situation, no one else sees the signs of what's happening to her.
It's called Dreamland, and it's by Dessen, and you should find it at your local bookstore or at your favorite library.
Thanks, Shelley and Kelly. It's time now for the New York Times bestseller list. We'll start out with hardback fiction. Number 10 on that list is Visions of Sugar Plums by Janet Ivanovich, Answered Prayers by Danielle Steele, Esther's Gift by Jan Karan, The Christmas Shoes by Donna Van Leer, Hornet Flight by Ken Follett, The Christmas Train by David Baldacci, The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold, John Grisham's Skipping Christmas, Four Blind Mice by James Patterson is number 2, and number 1 is Michael Crichton's Prey. On the nonfiction list, Sandy Koufax by Jane Levy is 10, The Conquerors by Michael Beschloss, Abraham by Bruce Feiler, My Losing Season by Pat Conroy, The Sea Hunters 2 by Clive Cussler and Craig Durgo, Journals by Kurt Cobain, A Long Way from Home by Tom Brokaw, Leadership by Rudy Giuliani with Ken Curson, Portrait of a Killer by Patricia Cornwall is number 2, and Bob Woodard's Bush at War is number 1. On the children's list, number 10 is the all-new Captain Underpants Extra Crunchy Book of Fun 2 by Dav Pilkey, Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt, Junie B. First Grader at Last by Barbara Park, The Case of the Candy Cane Clue by Judy Kotchke, Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul on Love and Friendship, compiled by Canfield, Hansen, and Kerberger, Artemis Fowl by Ian Colfer, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets by Rowling, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire by Rowling is number 2, and Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by Rowling is number 1. Coming up next, we have Doug Benton from the Metropolitan Library System. He will be talking with our resident expert on all things military, Gary Rodriguez. I think he has a book you'll really enjoy.
Hello again. I'm here today with Gary Rodriguez. Hello.
How you doing,
Good
Doug?
to see you. Gary is our expert on all things military here on the show. Yeah. Well, that's the reputation that you've created here. He has a book today called The 11 Days of Christmas by Marshal Michel III. What is this all about?
This is it actually says America's Last Vietnam Battle. Mm-hmm. And what it really is about is, anybody has any history of the Vietnam War, it's Linebacker 2. The bombing campaign that basically made the North Vietnamese go back to the peace tables and get the treaty signed. You know, they kind of were directing how it was going, and they were playing their game, and Nixon basically said, all right, we'll make the buggers go back. I'll use a different word. Go back. You know,
well, Nixon would have used a different word.
Yeah, he would have used a little different word. But this is public television. We don't want to get too violent. But it's more than just the bombing campaign. It actually is a very all-encompassing book about the Vietnam War in general. It tells about the history of where Vietnam came from, and Ho Chi Minh, and gets into all that, gets into the Paris peace talks, gets into Curtis LeMay wanting to have a nuclear bomber force, and how he didn't want to be dropping a bunch of conventional bombs. Yeah. Iron bombs wasn't what he was after. And so the Air Force had been geared that way to bomb nuclear bombs. So, and it actually points out the reason we had the losses we had was because of that nuclear bombing mindset. This campaign was actually directed, the paths on how to get there, the bomb paths to get in, how they turned, everything was directed from Nebraska, for heaven's sakes. They literally got the frag orders, was what they call the orders to fly, everything, the power settings, everything, from Nebraska. And they flew them the same way for 7 days. And they took pretty tremendous losses. They didn't even know for a fact, when they dropped the bomb bay doors open, they were creating a 75% increase in the radar return. And it was just like magic. All of a sudden, here they're on the bombing run, and the Vietnamese, because this book goes both ways. It's not just the U.S. version of it. They talk to the Vietnamese anti-aircraft people, and basically leaders from there. So it's a really all-encompassing book. But it talks about they opened the doors, magically the radar return suddenly stabilized, and there it was. And then when they turned the planes, where they turned the planes after the bombing run, negated the anti-radar that they had on the planes, the electronic countermeasures. They didn't even take that into account. Then the bomber crews knew that's what was happening, and they tried to tell them. And you got to give them credit. They flew the mission, even when they knew it was bad. So,
I'm sitting here with my mouth open as I listen to this stuff. So it's fascinating me just hearing you talk about it. But who is the book for? Is it written for the general audience, you think?
It really is a general audience. Someone doesn't know anything about it. A teenager could pick this book up, and it's a very good book. It's a very non-biased book. A lot of times they have a lesson or a axe to grind, and they try to do it. This book is not written that way. It's a very neutral book. It's very interesting.
Okay, Gary, thank you for bringing it in. It's The 11 Days of Christmas by Michael L. Michel III. Gary Rodriguez, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank all of you for listening.
Thanks, Doug and Gary. Coming up next, we have M.J. Van Deventer, Director of Publications for the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum. She'll be talking with Dr. Mike Anderson, President of the Presbyterian Foundation, and I think you'll enjoy what he has to say.
Good morning.
Good morning, MJ.
Thank you so much for being here. And first of all, let me say congratulations. You've just been named president of the Presbyterian Health Foundation.
Well, thank you very much.
Great
we'll
honor.
Start January 1st.
Great. Well, congratulations.
Succeed a great person, Jean Gummerson,
Yes.
who will continue with us as President Emeritus.
She's done a wonderful job. You have a book that's a new book out that you want to talk about this morning, The Next Christendom, by Philip Jenkins.
Yes. Well, thank you. I love books.
I know you do.
I'm a bibliophile, and it was hard to choose one book.
I know. I see we have 3 books here on the table this morning.
But this one's a little unusual. I love to read novels because of the pictures they give us and so on, and there's some great ones. I've just finished Umberto Eco's Bottolino, which is a wonderful read. But I want to discuss a nonfiction about a subject that has worldwide impact and is of great interest because of the crises we're in as America, in the world in which we have been cast as world leaders. And that is The Next Christendom by Philip Jenkins, and it has to do with what is going on with Christianity vis-a-vis other religions, for example, Islam in the world today.
Tell me a little bit about the Islam religion.
Well, Islam, of course, is growing very fast, but it is pretty much confined to those countries where it has geographic and national roots. It is growing through immigration in America, and there are more Islamic people in America than there are Episcopalians or Presbyterians.
I don't think we realize that, do we?
And it has grown to be a very sizable denomination in America itself.
Well, what is the future of the Christian religion in the world of global diversity?
Well, this is a very good question, and one of the things that many Christians feel is that we're sort of losing ground to a growing Islam, because Islam is strong. It's not just Arabic. Probably there are more members of Al-Qaeda in Indonesia, which is not Arabic, than there are in the Arabic countries. And Indonesia is the largest Islamic nation of the world by far. It's the 4th largest nation in the world, and over 90% of it is Islamic. But in fact, what is happening in the world today, if you took all of the decades since the birth of Jesus, which was only 200 decades ago, this decade, the first decade of the 21st century, is the decade of the rapidest expansion of Christianity by far than any decade in all of its history.
That's a surprising fact, I think.
And it's a well-documented fact by this book. If you read The Next Christendom, you'll see country by country where this is happening.
One last quick question. Who is the world's greatest Christian leader in the last 100 years?
Well, we would probably want to pick a Sister Teresa or a Pope or somebody like this, maybe Pope John the 22. But I would pick Simon Kimbangu, formerly of the Belgian Congo, now the Republic of Congo, because of his effect upon Christianity in all of Africa. And his church has grown from a prison cell, which he was cast in 1921, to over 7 million members today.
My goodness, what a surprising fact. Thank you so much for sharing this with us today.
It's good to be with you. Thank you very much.
I know it is wet, and the sun is not sunny.
Hi, my name is Jose Jimenez of your Metropolitan Library Commission. You know, most experts tell us that if you just spend 20 minutes a day reading to your child, you're not only building a bond that lasts a lifetime, but you're also preparing that child to learn how to read. Check with the experts at your Metropolitan Library for suggestions on just the right books for you and your family. And visit us at our website at www.metrolibrary.org.
Be sure to visit the Metropolitan Library System at its website, www.metrolibrary.org. You can find out everything you ever wanted to know about the system, what we have available for checkout, where our programs will be held, and so on and so forth. You can even put books on reserve and recheck books that you've already checked out. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you again next time.
Local presentation of Read About It is made possible in part by a grant from Cox Communications of Oklahoma City, proud sponsor of this effort to promote reading, education,